These are my filters. Once you click it, it'll pull up this. And then, yeah, then I was trying to make this part once you click this button here, if that equals that plus whichever box you choose. So you click that button, it brings up this. So you type in your answer here, you'll have a hidden answer here, or else it's probably invisible if it connects properly. Yeah, and then have an actual to close that out. And it'll make that disappear. And then all these disappear. Two spots appear if you want to retry or just exit. I had smelled such tomato and I was trying to figure out how to see which parts. No, not yet. But I'm pretty sure it's easy. I think it's making this invisible. Putting it into your box.
How's everybody this morning? We're getting a few people, stragglers in the snow. We didn't really get that much snow. There are stragglers this morning. We don't have a lot to do today. Wrap everything up. I know everybody's working on their Jeopardy game. I wanted you guys to present it today, but then I decided that sanity was more important than seeing each other's Jeopardy games, and we would just have them do tonight instead of worrying about that. So that's why that date changed.
I was actually very glad. So like, I don't think I can finish it.
I know, and it was just like, sanity is much more important than us getting to see that with each other. So I know I want to see everyone's too, but that's just better to keep everybody sane. Give them time to work on it, because it's definitely not worth huge amounts of trauma. We have enough trauma in our lives, don't we? Yeah, those who are done could show, but wait, would they be giving secrets away to those who are not done, or just confusing them? I'm not sure. Well, think about that, because that's an interesting thought, Erin. There are some ramifications. Oh, I see. You just show them the form. I think that's a good idea. Let me add that. And we won't spend a lot of time with that, but I would definitely like to see them. Yeah, that's what I would like to see. Some progress being made too was fine. I think that might be just as helpful to everybody as seeing a completed project. So we should kind of share. I know it's our final and we should not share, but it's a special semester. We've been doing everything a little bit different than normal anyways. So we'll just continue on with that tradition in our knowledge transfer and see if we can get everybody to see each other's a little bit, get some ideas. And we don't want those ideas definitely to alter anybody's course of action right now, because if they're too far along in their design, you wouldn't want to have any sort of changes. All right, before we do that though, let's take a quick look at that project we were working on last time, and I'm going to bring it up in Visual Studio. if you remember, it's no big deal. If you did not create one, that's fine. Let me go back to where we were the other day. What we did is we created a very small project, and in our project, we had a class file, class A, an instance class that just has some data. And what we did is we set up a private, a protected, and a public variable. And then we created a tester class that created an instance of that class. Let me turn off this background nauseating thing. All right. So in that, we found that when creating an instance, you know, it's bad when I can't remember which symbols to use for comments in the language I'm typing. Been a long weekend. When creating an instance, we could only see public, right? In our class A. So we need to take that a little bit further, because in this example, all we're doing is creating an instance. But what if we were extending class A? What if we added another class called class B? We're in the same project and we create class B. Now, the only thing that I added in the class B header is that inheritance of class A. And then in the constructor, I put in code to see which variables I could get to from that base class. And I am able to access the protected and the public variable. So that means that we're seeing different results if we're talking about inheritance versus just creating an instance of a class. So just be sure to read the questions really closely when they're talking about things like that. Are they talking about just creating an instance like we're doing in our tester? Or are they talking about extending the class using inheritance? Let's go one further level down of inheritance. In our class B class, I went ahead and added some variables. And again, for class B, I made a public, a protected, and a private. Now, when I do that and create a third class, class C here, and I make class C inherit from class B, what all can I see? Well, in our new class C that inherits, so it's like our third layer of inheritance, we can see the protected and public variables from class B, and we can see the protected and public variables from that original class A, like the parent of our parent, the grandparent. And this 3 layers of inheritance is, I believe, the closest to the scenario that they give you in the MTA exam as far as which access levels you should use. And of course, if the question is talking about how to make it where nobody else can see it, that one's a given. Now, what was that other? There was one other access level that is newer. Modifiers. Internal, protected internal, private internal. Now, when we go to internal, the typer member can be accessed by any code in the same assembly, but not from another assembly. So does that mean, let's try it. Does that mean we could create another project and still get to it? Yeah, I don't believe the internal is really something that they question a lot because it's not as commonly used. So protected, we can access that by code in the same class or in code class that is derived from that class or inherits from that class. So internal would basically be the same as public within this solution, right? So anything within our solution, any different project would be able to access it. But if we had some other project, like we created a DLL library or something, we would not be able to. The majority of the questions that you'll see will deal with public, protected, and private. So let's look at that study guide. Is that where we are? Oh no, I wanted to do Quizlet. Let's try a Quizlet. I'm going to bring up this software development deck that only has 42 terms, and some of them should be really, really basic. Let's try a Quizlet live just to get everybody woke up this morning. A little bit of competition here. Let's see if we can do this. I heard that there was a lot of stuff down this morning. We're going to be doing individuals, so we could run into some trouble. No, there's Quizlet music. Make you crazy. Okay, get on there. Go to www.quizlet.live and put in our code here. Is there? Yes. Are you stuck waiting? No, you're not the only one. Thank you, Ivy. You are not the only one. It was getting backed up. Hey, Jackie, we're starting a Quizlet Live. Jump in there. Sorry, I didn't see you waiting. Sort of like super intense Christmassy like music to get you going, huh? 8. We've got a couple more. Let them get in here. How are we doing? So go ahead, we'll go ahead. We're gonna go with these 8. All right, let's do this. Oh, you guys see the lights flicker. It's intense thoughts. Nope. Oop. Everybody's jumping ahead. There's a few hard ones in there, isn't there? Everybody settles down for a bit. We had like a tie. Awesome, that's never happened here. Let's see how you did. Check these stats. Oh, surprisingly, we learned some really old terms. Some of these old ones probably won't show up on your exam, but if they do, use your common sense and try to evaluate what it must stand for. You guys got to play the acronym game. Okay, I'm going to close this thing. Good job.
Couldn't have been IIS because it had it on top. And then it was like, nope, you're wrong. It is top.
Let's go find that study guide. I know you guys are in great places. Where were we? Oh yeah, we had just looked at the purple section, right? So chapter 4, this blue section is ASP.NET. We did not do a lot with that, remember? We just kind of, just glazed over it so that you would have a little bit exposure to some of those acronyms. So let's take a quick look there. Scrolling. I get the Rawhide song stuck in my head because my husband makes me watch stupid Westerns all weekend. You guys don't have to watch Rawhide all weekend. Count yourselves lucky. All right, let me bring up a list here. But actually, they're quite relaxing sometimes. It can be okay. So we have a list of people. Let me find them. I think I'll just go with our participant list if that's okay with you guys. And then we don't have to worry about me trying to figure out if people are here or not. So I'm just going to look at the Zoom participant list. And Erin, are you available to read this very first one for us? Or are you baby feeding or something? What do you guys think? I think he's otherwise occupied. Jackie, how about you? Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Can you see this? Page 33.
Yep. Do you want me to read the scenario and the questions?
Yes, please.
Tanya owns a small dance studio and is looking for ways to bring in new customers and improve communications with her existing customers. She's not particularly knowledgeable about web design, but several years ago, one of her dance students offered to create a website for the studio. That student has moved on to the university, as Tanya has relied on a few different volunteers to maintain the site. As a result, the site is disorganized and lacks consistency. The volunteers all use different colors and fonts. It resulted in a very non-professional website. Knowing that she can't fix the site herself, she's asked her nephew Maxim to help. Before Maxim creates a page, he wants Tanya to have at least a basic understanding of the technology involved. Which technology uses tags to indicate how information should be displayed on a web browser?
Which one of those? Mm-hmm. A. You are right. What about number 2? Can you read it for us, Jackie?
Which of the following is a key advantage of using CSS?
C. C sounds good. What about number 3?
What is JavaScript?
JavaScript, server side, client side. client. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Again, play the acronym game because you're looking at Microsoft questions. So you want to think about what each of those acronyms stands for. And then that can help you determine which answer they're looking for. But whenever we're looking at displaying information in a web browser to them, they're just talking about HTML. Those other things are modifying the way it's displayed, but HTML is causing. Put that on our Jeopardy game. Very good. So just think about it that way. HTML is how you display one page. CSS helps you format multiple pages. And then JavaScript is client side, because guess what they're going to be talking about next? Stuff that's not client side. So let's take a look at that one. Mary, you're next on my list. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Maxon has spent quite a bit of time talking with his aunt.
Can you
Tanya,
yell or get
Huh?
closer to your mic? Let me turn my volume up.
okay.
Okay, now that was me. Go ahead.
Maxine has spent quite a bit of time talking with his aunt Tanya about a new website for her dance studio, and he is beginning to get ideas on how to update and improve the site. Tanya's old site is pretty basic, and Maxim believes he can add a lot of existing features that will appeal to younger web-savvy customers. One of his first priorities is to make the site a little more interactive with buttons that respond to mouse rollovers and a slideshow to display images of the studio. He also wants to implement online shopping for dance apparel. That update would include a wish list feature for users to save items they were interested in purchasing at a later time. 1. Maxim's mouse rollover effect can be accomplished with a client-side script. Which of the following is a client-side technology?
C. Very good. What about number 2?
In a standard HTML site, page information is lost each time the user refreshes a page or moves to a different page. Which of the following allows page information to be retained?
What do you think? What would be the best guess there? State management, you're right. What about number 3?
Maxim wants to use cookies to keep track of the user's wish list. What is a cookie?
Out of those answers, what would you guys say is the best? A? Yeah. A. Trust yourselves, even if they're using a little bit different terminology than what you're used to, for sure. So you've got that. Text data. In our life cycle, that's why that number 2 you're not sure about, because you know it has to do with the life cycle. So remember, life cycle is the process. The action of actually saving the information is state management. So let's go to web hosting. Richard, are you there?
Yes.
Can you read this
Can
one
you
for
hear
us?
me?
Yeah.
All right. Scenario. With plans for Tanya's dance studio website beginning to take shape, it's time for Maxim to think about how he will put the site on the internet. Maxim doesn't have a lot of experience creating web applications. Most of his experience is with traditional Windows applications. He knows that a website is hosted on a server, but he's never worked with a server before. Plus, his aunt doesn't have a lot of money for this project, so he has to keep cost to a minimum until the site brings some business. Which is an ISP probably, why is an ISP probably a good choice for Maxim?
What do you think? You guys got any free internet service out there? No? Probably not A yet. They give you Windows Server when you sign up? No. So theoretically, the ISP would provide technical support and maintenance. And sometimes you have to be like, oh yeah, that could be in a perfect world. What about number 2, Rich?
An employee at a reputable ISP tells Maxim that they use Windows Server and that he needs to understand the basics of Internet informational services. Which of the following is not a role of IIS?
What do you think?
C.
C? C seems pretty logical. What about number 3?
The ISP tells Maxim they support virtual directories. What is a virtual directory?
What do you think? Again, you're looking for the most logical.
Would be B.
B, because you guys know that you don't have a folder directly mapped from your computer out to the internet, so you know that one's not a good answer. And C is something that you've never heard of, so chances are it's not real. So good job. And Aaron, you should be able to get a copy of Windows Server, a licensed copy on that DevTools platform. You guys should be able to get Windows Server, SQL Server, any of that, those Microsoft products that you want should be out there for free for you, just like Windows 10. So go check. I know it's changed a lot, and you know that my account doesn't work, so I can't guarantee it. But you used to be able to get Windows Server and SQL Server and all those different really expensive pieces of software for free. So go grab them while you can. Your product key will stay active after you are no longer a student. So in Microsoft's perfect world, an internet service provider will generally provide space on a server, maintenance and support, email service, and security and stability. And I mention that because that does not seem to be kind of like our perceived norm, but that is Microsoft's perceived internet service provider. So we need to be aware of that. Thank you, Rich. That would be the one. Get in there and see what kind of freebie stuff you could get. Get it all downloaded. Make sure you save your product keys so that you've got those saved with your installation files. All right, our next one, understand web service. I've got Greg listed next here in my list. Greg, can you read this one for us?
Yeah. Maxim has worked hard to publish an exciting professional site for Tanya's dance. It's been available for more than a month now, and customers have given Tanya great feedback. They love all of the interactive media and the simple consistency of the overall design. Best of all, the new site has increased Tanya's income by attracting new students and by allowing customers to purchase items from home. With the extra money she wants to pay Maxim to put a little more into the site. No major changes, just some catchy additions. She liked her homepage to display the current weather and traffic conditions, and she thinks a Bing search bar would help users find information quickly. Although Maxim has never programmed this type of functionality before, he knows that he can use web services to help. In this context, what is a web service?
Which one would be the best choice there? So was your calculate cost for your shipping project a web service? Yes. So that's the kind of thing they're talking about. So which one would be the best answer? That one is really confusing, and I just went ahead and looked up forward because they're looking for a system that allows multiple programs to interact via the internet, because your web service allowed different types of programs to connect to the web to get that information from you. So you guys were right to be reluctant to answer that one. What about number 2?
When using the Bing API to add search capabilities to a site, what is the web service role of Bing?
Provider. Seems good. What about number 3?
Which of the following is a framework commonly used to access a web service?
So again, we just wanted to get familiar enough with those acronyms to be able to answer which one is commonly used. So that's the level of questions you should be seeing. Notice that people ask all the time about these different exams, lots of different questions. This exam is the one that expects you to know things about several different topics, okay? So most of the other MTA exams, all of the other MTA exams are very exclusive to the topic you're being tested on, like SQL, just SQL, HTML, just HTML. This exam covers C#, object-oriented programming concepts pretty in-depth, basic web concepts, and then we're going to see basic SQL concepts. So it's definitely the more all-encompassing exam of the group. So let's think about what's a desktop app. So we're switching gears here. This last section, the blue section, we were talking about ASP.NET, web services type things. Now, with this orange section, we're talking about Windows Forms. You know, that's our bread and butter here, working on the desktop. How do Windows Forms applications work? So let's see. Ivy, you're next on my list. Can you read this one for us?
Julia doesn't have a lot of free time when she's studying computer science at her university, but in the evenings, she enjoys playing online role-playing games, RPGs. She plays several games on a regular basis, and she enjoys leveling up her characters and completing quests for special items. However, because her playing time is both limited and fragmented, she has difficulty keeping track of the status of each of her characters. So she decides to create an application to keep track of the progress of her different characters, including levels and quests. She envisions a simple application that will allow her to select a character and then view and edit relevant information, a picture of the character, its current level, XP needed to advance, current quest item, and so on. What type of application would best fit Julia's needs?
Now, looking at the hint over on the side helps a little bit with those acronyms that they have. SDI is single document interface. MDI is multiple document interface. What's the difference? Single document interface is like Word, where every time you open a new instance of Word, it's just that one form, right? A multiple document interface is more like Excel, where the sub forms are within the main form, and you can move them around and rearrange them, but those subforms are multiple documents within that main form. So think about that difference. That's the main difference. We're talking about one form versus multiple forms contained within some sort of parent form. So returning to the question, what type of application would best fit her needs? Single form. What about number 2? For which, I would take over for Ivy here because otherwise it would take forever. Which one of the following situations would visual inheritance be useful? What would visual inheritance mean? See, we're talking about we've got the same kind of display that we'd like to be consistent with. And number 3, Ivy, can you read that one for us?
Which of the following describes how the event model might function in Julia's program?
What do you think? What would be the most common way of interacting with a Windows form? Button. Very good. You guys all surmised those perfectly. And then Windows services. And again, if you go on Windows to Control Panel, I'm going to go to the old Control Panel, System and Security. Then under Administrative Tools, we have a lot of different tools. One of them is services. We could go directly to that from the Windows Start menu. I just kind of want you to think about where that is. I've got that open now. So if I'm looking at Windows Services, these are all of the things, all of the services that are running behind the scenes in the background, making your print processes work, making your networking processes work, handling all of those behind the scenes things. So when we created a service, we created a web service that runs on the web, waiting for connections. These kinds of components, these pieces of software are basically the same. They're just helpers, but they're running behind the scenes on Windows as services. So they're hidden from us, but they're still back there. So you guys' calculate cost that you created as a web service could have been easily created as a Windows service, and then it would have just been there running and available for other applications to use it. So that's what the questions about this section would be referring to, is a Windows service like that. So let's see, Jacob, you're next on my list. Can you read this one for us?
Employees at Contoso
Yeah, just make it be whatever you want.
engage in extensive word processing sessions while preparing manuscripts for publication. Managers are worried that employees who type for extended periods of time may have problems with repetitive motion injuries and eye strain, as well as a general fatigue. They have asked the IT department to come up with a way to help reduce the chance of such injuries. Anna is developing an application that will monitor keystrokes. When a user has typed 2,000 words in fewer than 30 minutes, the application will display a notification reminding the user to take a brief break and stand up for a stretch. Anna has decided to write the application as a Windows service. What type of user interface, UI, do most Windows services, including Anna, remind your application employee?
What do you think if we're talking about a service? Would we have an interface? Nah, because it's a service. So it's kind of a trick question. What about number 2?
Which of the following is not characteristics of many Windows services?
Gotta hate those not questions. Which one of those? C. We don't like intervention in a service at all. We want it to just be running. What about number 3?
A Windows service generally has 3 different states after being started: running, stopped, and
Let's go look. I'll bring it back up so you can see. Arctic Wolf agent. So I don't want to stop Arctic Wolf, but there is a pause button. So what do you think? Paused. Paused, paused. Oh, and they made it D down here. It's actually C, so that's okay. So yeah, thinking about Windows services, common application would be antivirus software, things running in the background, printing, your print services, and understanding databases. So, Kirta, you're next.
Jasper pays for school by working part-time at a vintage record shop that sells music albums on vinyl. The store has thousands of albums by thousands of different artists, so the owner does not have an inventory system. He simply organizes albums by artist on the store shelves. That means when a customer asks if a particular album is in stock, Jasper must go out to the shelves and look for the album. Jasper wants to put together a simple inventory system so they can look up which albums are in stock from a computer behind the counter. I'll set up a relational database to store the information. I'll start by giving each artist a random and unique artist ID number. Likewise, each album will get an album ID number. What function do artist ID and album ID fulfill with Jasper's relational database as described above?
What do you think?
C, primary key.
Yep, they're primary keys. What about number 2?
Jasper will link albums to artists by adding an artist ID field to his album table. In this album table, what is artist ID?
What would it be? When we have a key that travels to a different table, to foreign key. What about number 3?
Which of the following will result when we use a relational database for this project?
A. Both of those other things are a little negative, aren't they? We wouldn't expect that. Negativity. Very good. Okay. Query methods. Stuart.
Now that Jasper has designed and implemented a relational database to keep track of the inventory of the record shop, he needs to be able to read and modify the data himself. He'll use SQL queries for his database operations. The application must enable Jasper to add to the database when the store gets a new album and to modify data such as the quantity in stock and the price. Additionally, we will need to pull data from the database, find artists or albums, list the current inventory, and list albums that are currently out of stock. Reviewing SQL concepts will help Jasper quickly complete this project. Which SQL commands should Jasper use to add a new album to his database?
Which is it?
B.
B. What about number 2?
Jasper can save frequently using queries. You can save frequently used queries as
C. I heard it. Stored procedures. What about number 3?
which query could retrieve the artist U2 from the table of artists.
Is A valid? No. Why? What's A missing? I mean, otherwise it's just all hosed up, right? Okay. What about number or B? Does B look good? Yes. Very good. And these questions are pretty representative of the knowledge level of SQL that you need. So if you can specify which is the right command and some basic query stuff, that's the level of SQL knowledge that they would expect you to have. So there is a small amount, but these questions are, like I would say, enough for you to know. Select to retrieve data, insert to add rows, update to modify rows, delete to remove rows. So that CRUD application that we did had pretty good representation of all of the SQL knowledge that would be required for this exam. So it is a small amount. Okay, next. Aaron, are you there now? Now he's off getting free software. I know he's downloading like 7 things right now. Can you read this? Do not update your primary machine until the semester is over.
I've already done.
Don't do that.
I already did.
53.
Perfectly now.
It works perfectly now. You're so lucky. Page 53, understanding database connection methods. This one's for you, Aaron.
With a solid database design in place and a few stored procedures to help manage his SQL queries, Jesper turned his attention to a user interface for his application. Using Windows Forms, he now has the essential elements in place to connect his applications to the database. Jesper decides to use a disconnected approach, meaning he will copy what he needs from the database to memory and disconnect from the database. When the user changes data, the application can connect again and update the database. What is the advantage of Jesper's use of a disconnected database data access model? And then A, it minimizes the impact of the database, impact on the database server. B, it does not require internet connection. Or C, it prevents unauthorized access to the database.
What would it be? A, yes. What about number 2? What's the term used to describe an in-memory cache of the database? A, data set, very good. What about 3? What object contains the information ADO needs to connect to a database? Which one were we worried about when we were trying to make our connection? C. So that would be right. You got it. It is C. We saw too that we could use some other database or other data sources like XML, and we could use link queries to standardize the access of those different data sources. And look at that, that's the end. It's the end, it's the end. Okay, so from our study guide, you see, it's not just C#, but it is a lot of C#. So C#, what are your basic data types, native data types, how big are they? Remember that anytime we are looking at a data type that starts with an uppercase letter, it's an object type, right? So it's a reference type, like a string. In C#, we can use lowercase s or uppercase s to indicate a string, but the lowercase one is just a synonym. The real one is the uppercase s because it's actually an object. So those are important things. Let's see some Jeopardies. Let me disconnect here. Aaron, it's got your name here and you suggested this, so let's see what you got. He's probably got fuzzy internet now. We've made him talk. Yes, you first, please. Please, sir.
If you can go ahead and add the second instance of me to the Zoom, perfect.
You are no.
Okay. Let's hide all my code so you guys don't steal it. You guys wouldn't steal it. Okay, so let's run this sucker. Okay, on the side there we have our high scores. on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, we have a couple buttons. I think I need to move the exit button up or two. So let's hit the rules first. If you guys don't know how to play Jeopardy, here's how you do it.
Fancy.
Then let's start. How long do we want to sit here and listen to me read questions? Just 60 minutes. 3 players. Mo, Hurley, and what was the name of the other stooge?
Larry, he says.
What?
Larry.
Larry. There we go. Larry, Mo, and Curly. Let's load and start. So instead of having it just load a XML right away, I wanted the user to be able to pick one. That way you can create different question sets and use the program for multiple games without it being the same.
Nice.
Okay, so on the top, we have our great big anxiety inducer, the timer. We have the handwritten names. We have their scores. And then we have our table panel here with a ton of buttons. Once again, if you don't know how to play the game, here's how you would play it. So let's do one that we all probably don't know. This woman was known as the world's first computer programmer and was also a countess.
Ada Lovelace. Ada Lovelace.
Who is Ada Lovelace? I got that wrong. However, the host has the option to mark it as correct or incorrect. And if it's incorrect, when we press continue, it prompts the next contestant if they're like to steal the question.
He was worried about this cheating.
What was that?
You were worried about this cheating. Wasn't that you were concerned? I'm just kidding you. Go ahead. It looks great. If
they say yes, you know, they can put it. If they say no, then there's no, they don't lose any points. So like Larry said no, he didn't want to guess because the other two got it wrong. And then when we press end game, I have a bug. Anyways, it should say their name right here. I'll have to fix that in a little bit. And then their score, which happened to be $0. He's not the greatest at this game, I guess. When we press exit, if we come down here, it's been added. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I think we have 10 there. And so, yeah, that's
beautiful.
Jeopardy.
Yep, it was because both your scores were negative, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they're their top 10, so.
Yep, okay, Jackie, thank you. That was great. What do you guys think? I love it. Yay. Okay, let's see yours, Rich. Rich was sounding like he was wanting to share a little bit. So I want to see it.
Sure. So I'm a little behind on this prettiness of it. I've been working more on my classes and learning a lot more about classes.
Great.
On this one. So I don't have a fancy screen and
that's all
whatnot,
right.
But it does work really good, basically. I have a playboard class, which is all the buttons. I have a question button, basically class, that my question inherits, which is the question screen. And I have a score and a score footer. So mine basically doesn't have a fancy splash screen or anything like that. I'm just going to take the hits because I've been working more on trying to learn about inheritance and
I think that's
abstract.
That's great.
So this is how I just have like, because one of the requirements is players, so you have to have so
looks really good.
So basically this is no rules. That's why I'm back. Now mine jumps right into the game itself. I have 3 players. It could have just been 1. What happens is when you click on the button, it then goes to the question, and it says this the property will return the number of items in a linked query result. And basically, if you had 3 people in front of you, I'm not allowing you to enter the answer, but let's say that this guy answered, and then the other guy's like, hey, no, you're wrong. Then you could change it to this guy, or you could have an unanswered question. So each user is kind of assigned, and I don't have my usernames down here right now, but I will. And then when it comes back, it sets the tile to the person that won, and this is the winning amount down here at the bottom.
Very neat.
So if this got answered right, you have to double click. Basically, it fires on the second click of the answer. So the second click will answer the question basically and assign a point. And that's basically it.
Very nice.
And that's basically it. I still have a lot to work to do. Like I got to get my usernames down here in the bottom. And it's just a lot of work. And I know it's a final, but I spent a lot of time on my learning myself how to get
Right.
the playboard. Basically, the playboard designer is actually not buttons drug onto the deal, but actually I've set the buttons inside of the designer. So you know how you drag a button onto the form? Well, I've actually programmatically created the buttons on the form itself by using the class of question button.
Uh-huh.
And question button basically is another like form / code, and it inherits the button, but the question button holds all the information for the gameplay, basically the questions he answered, who's winning it, where it goes on the form, and then I've got my score footer that I'm working on. Basically, these are the people, the player name. That's on the, and that's basically it.
Nice.
I don't know if that's worthy of an A, but that was a lot of work.
I think you might get it. Thank you. It was great. Aaron's got a comment there. You could make an array with all the button names and loop through them if you want.
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Looks great. Okay, who else wants to show us some?
Right.
Let's see what we got. We'd like to see some others. Don't be shy. Who else have we got out here? Well, if you guys want to just spend time working, that's fine too. I know there's a lot going on. And I think that you all during this time while you're here in class, I feel like it's acceptable for you to work with each other and help each other. Again, like I said, I know it's your final, but this whole semester has been just a little different and a little out of kilter. And so I would like for you to help each other. Yeah, I know, Jackie, we want to see them, but everybody wants to get them done too. So we'll just go both ways and kind of let everybody get to work, because I do think that you might be stuck in a spot that if someone else could just take a look, they could get you moving and progressing along instead of battling, and that's where we want everybody. Now, you guys know we're supposed to be here Friday morning here in our classroom for our final, right? We got it all set. I'm going to delete all those weird contests or I'm looking at 7 things. All those weird calendar entries that I created for just in case that we don't end up needing. You guys should.
The final, the Certiport final, do we make a Certiport that counts, or do we just kind of show up here on Friday?
You can just show up here, but if you want to go ahead and recreate your Certiport account beforehand,
8?
you can at 8 o'clock. And so, yes, we will be using Certiport as our test site. Let me bring up that site for you. So if you have already taken an exam, but you are not sure if you can remember your username and password, or if you've never taken one before, if you go to their site, you can make sure that you can log in or you can register for the new account. But you do not need to do that beforehand. Richard says it's going to be the first time out of the house in a long time, so we'll be glad to see you. Be careful driving. It can be pretty stressful the first time. At least it was for me. I sort of forgot how to do it. But anyways, get registered or logged in. Sometimes it's really stressful for people if they can't remember their password and they're trying to get logged in. The way we'll run the test is we'd like everybody to be here at 8. We will all get logged in, make sure that we're all using all of the right credentials and information, and then I'll log everybody in for me as the proctor, and then we'll all begin the exam about the same time so that we don't have any sort of interruptions or distractions.
Will we be using our personal emails or our school ones?
We'll be using what?
Will we be using for registration? Will we be using the school one or our personal?
It doesn't matter. Okay. Because when you put in the group code, it's going to associate you with OTC. Okay. So it doesn't matter which you use. I think that if you have your Certiport account set up with your OTC email, you should change it to a personal email because this is your certification history and you want it to stay with you forever, even when you're not at OTC anymore. So make it your OTC account if that's the easiest to remember, but make it go to a different email, so that you have that secondary access to it outside of OTC. Now, I know a lot of you have already taken certification exams, but let's think about some basic things. Test taking strategies. You want to make sure that you're well rested and that you're confident and minimizing stress as much as possible, made plans to be here, all that kind of good stuff. If you hear things from other people that maybe have taken the exam, be careful with what you ask them because there are confidentiality agreements that you agree to when you agree to take the exam. So you agree that you're not going to give specific questions to other people. So along those same lines, don't ask people that have already tested anything about specific questions, but you could definitely ask them if there's a certain area that they would recommend you really study on or brush up on if you have people around that have taken the exam. But just like every single question, take everything they say with a grain of salt. Every single question you're going to read, you're going to try to read every single word and focus. Are they talking about a test or are they talking about an instance of this class or are they talking about, an actual inheritance situation? So the different terms can be really, really, so just be careful with that. But what are some general test taking tips that you've seen in the past? If you have no idea, longest answer, right? If you have no idea, C. Those kinds of test taking strategies are valid here just as much as they are in an English test or any other kind of test that you're taking. Those are the things. If it makes absolutely no sense, it's probably not the right answer. Go with your gut. Your first instinct is correct usually. If you decided on a specific answer and you're reviewing your answers, don't change your first choice unless you have really good reason and you're absolutely sure now that that was the wrong choice. Otherwise, you should trust your gut and go with it. As I mentioned last time, throw out distractors. If you see a question that starts with Windows 98 and you go, oh my God, I've never used Windows 98, I'm not going to know this, ignore that that's something that's probably irrelevant to the question overall. So remember, those kinds of things are just put in there as a way to kind of shake people, because we really want to make sure that people have the knowledge. And if they're easily shaken like that, then, you know, they need to firm up their knowledge level a little bit. Okay. Tried and true strategies. I'm good. Yeah, Erin says that. On the ACT, answers are in order from smallest to largest. You don't have to solve the problem, just know the ballpark range of the answer. Oops, yeah, I know that's the wrong test, but those are still good points. You know which answer seems valid. Acronym game always. Try to figure out what the acronym stands for, because if you can remember what it stands for, that's probably going to eliminate an answer or two. Mary says, what's the time limit for the test? The time limit is 45 minutes. So you don't know how many questions that's going to be, because
Oh,
a question could be worth different amounts of points.
oh shit.
Yep. That's the
What?
right word.
Wow.
So, we just don't know. Sometimes it can even be an adaptive exam, where if you get a question right, you may never see another question about that topic. So there could be a student in here that would tell me, that test had nothing to do with object-oriented programming. I got like one question about object-oriented programming. Well, you must have got that one right, because they just decided that there wasn't any reason to ask you any more questions about that, because you demonstrated knowledge in that area. So that can happen. If you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know this SQL stuff, and they just keep hitting me with it, that could be true also, because they could have detected a wrong answer on something that they feel like is pretty basic. So you might be getting hit with a few more questions to try to determine, do you know enough about that, or is your knowledge not really substantial? So adaptive exams like this can end up with fewer questions overall with a passing score, right? So usually what I see is sometimes the people that are at the very end of the time are the ones that maybe got a couple incorrect. And so it's hitting them with a few more questions, maybe a little bit more detail. Or it might just be that that person who's working at the end is reading everything a little bit slower, focusing a little bit more. You know, it's just super, super hard to know. Yeah, they're all very tightly timed. And yeah, deep breath, just relax. The bottom line is, you guys have the knowledge. I feel like as a group, you guys should have a pretty good confidence level. I feel pretty confident about you guys going in here. Anything could happen. Geez Louise, it's been a pandemic. You've all had about a billion things to worry about this semester. I know that. So we're just going to approach it that way. I would bring you snacks, but you know they would probably kill me. So do stuff on your way here. You know, help yourself to sausage McMuffin or something delicious like that. On your way, just don't bring it. Okay, no anxiety, it's going to be fine. Okay, a couple other questions that everybody always has, just so you know. If you fail, you can schedule again with Dr. Ford. It'll be $50. Now, you saw on that website, it would be $127 to schedule it outside of OTC. So the $50 retake is pretty cheap. That's something that I think you can do fairly quickly. I don't think that any of you will need that, but know that that option is available. It's just something that you can do real easily. Yeah, like Jackie said, just oddly worded questions. So some of the scenarios and things, they're just maybe going to give you some information that isn't really relevant to the question. And that's usually what's going on there. Yeah, there should be some partial code. Watch for those semicolons on those if statements. Watch for semicolons on while statements, because you know those are just, the compiler catches those now, and it didn't used to. So those were big bug areas for people for a really long time. And so it's kind of harder for you guys to catch those because the compiler doesn't let you get through with them anymore. So you don't really experience them as much as developers did a couple years ago before those errors were caught. So those kinds of things can actually be a little harder for us than they were. That's right. Act like you've already aced it, but work like you don't know it. That's good advice. Everybody is really, really in good shape. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Let me know if you have any questions, any worries, pop up. Do post them in Discord because everybody else will be having the same worry and concern and stuff like that too. So you've got this. I'll see you Friday morning. Nope, no Wednesday, Rich, just Friday. So steady up. See you then.